Welcome to this free immigration help channel. Today is January 15, 2025, and the brand new visa bulletin for February 2025 is out. So in this video, we're going to compare it to January 2025 visa bulletin and see what kind of movement we can see. Hopefully good news. I haven't looked at it myself yet. So if you're the first time watching this video, I'm going to mention, as I mentioned in every video, I am not an immigration attorney. This is not legal advice. All the information provided in this video is going to be directly from the official government website for the US Department of State, travel.state.gov. All the links will be in the description below. So I'm going to open January, I'm going to open February, and I'm going to do a brief introduction in case if this is your first visa bulletin video on this channel, so that everyone can understand how to read the visa bulletin, because it is important whenever it comes to family preference categories, whenever it comes to employment, whenever it comes to diversity visa lottery. In this video, we only going to talk about the family preference categories, but if you understand how to read visa bulletin, you can apply the same technique, and it's pretty straightforward. So there are 4 family preference categories: unmarried sons and daughters of US citizens. There's the second family preference category with 2 subcategories for permanent residents, spouses and children of permanent residents, and unmarried sons and daughters over 21 of permanent residents. There's third family preference category, married sons and daughters of US citizens, and then the 4th family preference category for brothers and sisters, for siblings of US citizens. Now, whenever it comes to immediate relatives, like parents of US citizens, like children and spouses of US citizens, visa bulletin does not apply to you, because once your I-130 is approved by USCIS and transferred to the NVC, that's it, your immigrant visa is already available. You don't have to deal with the visa backlog. So visa bulletin is for people who are dealing with the backlog. So on every visa bulletin you will find 2 graphs, and it's the same thing for employment-based categories as well. So there's a graph A, final action dates, and there's a graph B, dates for filing. So the graph A, final action dates, shows when the immigrant visa actually becomes available from the priority date. So based on the priority date, you can see approximately how long the backlog is right now for each given category. Graph B shows when the NVC portal is going to be opening up for documentary qualification. So if you're not documentarily qualified yet and you want to see, you're logging into your NVC, you can't do anything, you can't fill out anything, you can't pay the fees, and you wonder when it's going to be open for you to start documentary qualification process, you're looking at the graph B. Now, each graph has a few rows, obviously, for the actual family preference categories: F1, F2A, F2B, F3, F4. And then you can also see that there is the columns for the chargeability areas. So only 4 countries have separate chargeability areas. That is China, India, Mexico, and Philippines. Any other country, if you're from any other country, you are looking at all chargeability area right here. And then of course right here, these dates, these are the priority dates, and the priority date is when your I-130 has been received by USCIS. Obviously it's a different form if you're looking at the employment-based category, but it's kind of the same criteria, for the most part, criterion anyway. Okay, so let's start the comparison. This is January 2025. We're going to start with graph A, see if there's any movement on graph A, because that's the main graph. If we see good news on graph A, that's the good news really for everyone, because, well, everybody's waiting for it to be current. So this is February. This is January. I'm going to highlight January F1. We're going to start with F1, sons and daughters over 21 of US citizens. So all chargeability to February, no movement. As you can see, 22nd November 2015, 22nd November 2015. Now looking at China, same thing, no movement. Wow. India, no movement. Mexico, no movement. And Philippines, no movement. So unfortunately no movement at all in February for F1. Wow, it's not a good start. Let's look at the F2A. Let me drop this a little bit lower. There we go. Yes, same now. Okay, F2A. So in January we have it on 1st January 22. Wow, no movement here as well. No movement for China. Let's see, India, same thing, no movement for India. No movement for Mexico. No movement for Philippines. That's not good. Okay, let's look at F2B. That's F2B for January. So in February, no movement for all chargeability, no movement for China, no movement for India, no movement for Mexico, no movement for Philippines. Wow. F3. No movement for F3. I'm gonna get rid of this. No movement for China, no movement for India, no movement for Mexico, and no movement for Philippines. And it looks like the same is the case for forced preference, family preference category. No movement whatsoever. And looks like the graph B, I don't see any movement at the graph B either. Let's see. Wow, no movement at all. That's terrible. So September 17, September 17, September 17, Mexico, Philippines, F2A, Mexico, Philippines, no movement. So no movement for F1 for graph B, no movement for F2A, F2B, no movement. Really no movement at all? Nope. F3, let's see, F3, no movement. And F4, no movement at all. Wow. So yeah, I'm not sure what happened, but looks like between January and February there is absolutely no movement whatsoever. I don't normally look at the employment-based categories, but let's see what's going on for employment-based categories. It's a disaster. It's really bad. Family preference categories not moving at all. People just waiting. Okay, so there is something happening. So for religious workers, looks like from being unauthorized, it went to being authorized now. And that's really it. Yeah, okay. So one movement. So there is movement. So it's, yeah, so it's not any kind of glitch. It's not a copy paste, because we can see on employment based categories there is movement. The like third employment based category, it moves from June 2020 to July 2020, as you can see. That's besides being this authorized. Oh yeah, there's also movement here. October, from October 10th to October 15th. From December 1st to December 15th. So yeah, there was some movement, just not for families, unfortunately. Wow, this is really bad. This is terrible. Yeah, so I want to say apologies for not so good news. Doesn't depend on me, but I myself am looking at the visa bulletin because I myself have a petition. I myself am an immigrant. But yeah, that's what we have. Absolutely no movement at all. Not for graph A, not for graph B. So all I can say is hopefully we'll see some movement in the next one. But as for now, unfortunately, not good news. So God bless everyone, and I'll see you all in the next video.